Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast. I am your host, Mark Henry Jr., and you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _, and you can follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod on Twitter. We are right here on the show after my best ever month of gambling in September, getting 102 units on the Tough Cover Podcast. We are here to kick off October the exact same way and to send October the same direction that we sent September. So my record in September, to recap this before we get into the day's slate, in the NFL, it was 25-21 at plus 19 units. In the college football, it was 17-19-1 at plus 3 units. And in the MLB, it was 40-14 at plus 80 units. So that brings us overall to 54-1 at 102 units. But that's the past. We're looking towards the future. We're looking at today's slate, today's Saturday college football slate. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's look into the board at noon. I have two plays in the morning that I like a lot. At 12, my first one, I'm going with Purdue -2.5 versus Minnesota for 2 units. You may have heard me call this into the Brandon Walker College Football Show. I love Purdue -2.5 over Minnesota here. I think Purdue is a good team with a great defense that's getting punished for losing to what could be a pretty good Notre Dame team in a game they kept close until the fourth quarter. Purdue has given up only 14 points per game and only 300 yards per game and have not given up more than 27 points. So this is a defense that is going to hold Minnesota in check. And it's a defense with some blue chippers and a guy who's going to go top 15 to top 20 at the end in the 2022 NFL draft in George Karlaftis, a guy that I've really dove into this week, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Karlaftis laid a hit on Tanner Morgan last year that he still has not forgotten yet. And Tanner Morgan, the quarterback for Minnesota, row the boat, Scotty Ma, go Gophers, is not quite as charming when you're losing outright to Bowling Green as a 32-point favorite, not to mention the fact that they needed some fourth quarter miracles to not lose to Miami of Ohio. PJ Fleck excused this loss by saying 25% of Power 5 teams have lost to Group of 5 teams. He said he told his team that to keep them in good spirits. If that's not defeatist attitude, I don't know what is. Purdue has 2 quarterbacks they use all the time with Plummer and AOC. David Bell at wide receiver, one of the best players in the country, one of the best receivers in the country for Purdue. He's a game-time decision, and I think they'll cover without him. But if he plays, I like it even more. I think Purdue starts 2-0 here in the Big Ten for the first time since 2010 and also breaks a streak of 3 straight Minnesota wins as an underdog. I think there's an outside shot. Purdue gets to 8 wins here for the first time since 2007. Marky Mac, we're going to start off October hot. You're damn right. September was a hell of a month. We need to repeat it in October and keep it going for the rest of football season. So let's get to my next play at noon. At 12 o'clock, I have Michigan money line at Wisconsin for 4 units. This one's pretty simple. I think people are overreacting to Michigan struggling with a Rutgers team that I think is tough, and I think is going to hang tough with Ohio State today. I'm not betting it just because I can't quite pull the trigger. But I don't think Rutgers is some bad team that it's shameful to beat by 7. I also think people just don't realize how bad Wisconsin is and how bad Graham Mertz is. We saw it with Penn State when I was wrong. We saw it with Notre Dame when I was right. And we see it again with Michigan. The odds makers in Vegas just love Wisconsin. But sometimes Vegas is wrong. And sometimes you can just be wrong on how they have a team handicapped. And they've been wrong and off on Wisconsin all year. While I don't think Michigan has a special QB or a special passing game, they have the highest graded Power 5 running back per PFF in Blake Corum. And if Michigan gets off to any sort of lead, I think they'll be able to salt this game away running the ball, and Wisconsin can't play from behind. Michigan's defense has also been top 10 in almost every metric. So I just don't know why Wisconsin's offense is going to break out of their slump here. And for me to take Michigan, for me to bet on Michigan, that tells you that that's the right side, because I do not want to ever be rooting for Michigan. Mr. Crockbot, shout out to Dibes. Go check out Everything's Fine Pod. A great interview with Dives on the Eagles and Sixers. Good morning from Dives. Good morning to you too. Hutchinson is legit. He absolutely is. That's I believe you're talking about the interior O lineman there. Yeah, Michigan and Wisconsin are two teams that absolutely just pump out interior O linemen and O linemen in general. And this is going to be a game where we see the ball ran an absolute ton. There might be more runs in this game than passes with the way that Wisconsin and Michigan both game plan, the way that Harbaugh calls games, the way that Chris calls games for Wisconsin. So there's going to be a lot of running, a lot of O-line work for Dives to dive into and put out some highlights of. So let's get to the 3:30 slate. Before we get to the 3:30 slate, I just want to talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at 2:30, the big game of the day, in my opinion, the biggest game in Cincinnati program history. Notre Dame, Cincinnati in South Bend today at 2:30. Not the college game day. I think ESPN didn't want to go right back to a Notre Dame game after going to the neutral site game against Wisconsin in Chicago. I am never going to bet against Notre Dame. You're not going to get me to put Cincinnati on my card. But my suggestion to the non-Notre Dame fans out there would be to look into this matchup and tell me why Notre Dame's not going to get blown out, because I think Cincinnati is coming in for their biggest game of the year. They're coming in ready. They're coming in fired up. And I think Desmond Ridder is going to throw all over the Notre Dame secondary that isn't named Kyle Hamilton. So I'm worried about Cincinnati. I'm worried about Ridder. I'm not betting on Cincinnati, but if I was out there, I would take a look at Cincinnati. Fun fact, Temple has beaten Cincinnati in 4 of their last 5 games. Luke Fickell has turned around Cincinnati in these last couple of years, but he did have it was either last year or the year before, where he lost to Temple as a huge favorite. So, Temple does play Cincinnati next week after Notre Dame. Maybe a letdown, or maybe Cincinnati loses 2 in a row. Who knows? Desmond Ridder is really, really good. I'm terrified that Desmond Ridder is going to run all over us, throw all over us. Hopefully he looks like he looked in the first half against Indiana and not in the second half against Indiana for my purposes as a Notre Dame fan. So let's go to Florida State and let's talk about Syracuse, Florida State. I've got Syracuse plus 4.5 for 1 unit, and I've got Syracuse on the money line at plus 170 for 1 unit. This is a game I will not be watching due to Notre Dame at 2:30 and the loaded 3:30 slate. But Florida State should not be favored against anyone by 4.5, let alone 5.5, where it has crept. I'm not saying I love Syracuse, but they played a tough Rutgers team that I already mentioned, close in a 17-7 loss. And last week, they really impressed me by beating a pretty good Group of 5 Liberty team with a great QB in Malik Willis, who you'll hear me talk about many times throughout the rest of this year and into the draft season. But on the Syracuse side of the ball, Sean Tucker, the running back for the Orange, has been absolutely awesome, over 400 yards, and has had 3 games over 100 yards rushing. Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback for Florida State, should not be out there against the Syracuse team, who has 14 sacks in the last 2 weeks, and that's the main reason I like Syracuse in this game. Milton cannot avoid pressure. He's back there very tentative due to his injuries, and Syracuse has been really pressuring the quarterback. So I think Syracuse gets after Milton, and Cuse wins this game as a live dog. Marky Mack, sorry you got this Michigan game wrong. Wisconsin will steamroll the Wolverines. Michigan is too one-dimensional. Yeah, people said I had the Wisconsin game wrong last week and that Wisconsin was going to steamroll Notre Dame as a 6.5, 7-point favorite. They ended up losing by 28 points. I know it was a close game in the fourth quarter, but I don't understand how you can call Michigan one-dimensional when Wisconsin's quarterback is Graham Mertz. They can't throw the ball at all. I think they have the worst passing attack in the Power 5 right now. Graham Mertz has been nothing short of just an abomination to the quarterback position. So I don't think Michigan has a great passing attack. I'll take Michigan's rushing attack over Wisconsin. I also think they have the better defense and the better coach and just the better program here. I know Wisconsin's had some luck in this rivalry in the last couple of years, but I really like Michigan to win that game. But, if Michigan gets embarrassed, I am by no means going to cry for the Michigan Wolverines. Mr. Crockpot says, keep an eye on Amari Gaynor from Florida State. Maybe I will. Maybe I might tune into this game now. I might be going to Parks. Maybe I'll watch all these games, keep an eye on every game with my 10 eyes. So let's get to the next game here. Nevada, Boise State. I'm going with Nevada plus 7 for 2 units over Boise State. I'm going with Nevada on the money line for 2 units over Boise State. I love Nevada to compete, cover, and win this game, even on the blue turf in Boise, Idaho. But I'm just going to keep fading Boise. I was all over Utah State last week, who ended up losing 27-3, but they played the all-time worst game I've ever seen with red zone interceptions, missed kicks, penalties. It was an abomination. They actually outgained Boise State in a 27-3 loss. Boise State has not impressed me at all, and they did not impress me at all last week specifically. And Nevada isn't Utah State. Nevada has first-round quarterback Carson Strong, and I know people have cooled down a little bit on Nevada and Carson Strong because of a tough game with a K-State defense that is really, really good, and we'll get to them in a minute. It's also worth noting that game was 17-7 tied heading into the fourth quarter. So Nevada also coming off of a bye week, something that you really love here with this spot. Neither of these teams can run the ball whatsoever, but I'll take Nevada with the NFL quarterback in Carson Strong over the Boise quarterback in Hank Bachmeier. Boise State has controlled this rivalry over the past 17 matchups. It has won 16 of 17 meetings, including 6 straight. The last Nevada win actually came back in 2010 with Colin Kaepernick, when it ended Boise State's title hopes in an overtime thriller. One of the best games I've ever watched, and I'm still kind of convinced Boise's field goal went in and they got screwed. But oh well, Nevada makes history today and wins for their first time on the blue turf since 1997. So let's get to my best bet. Let's answer a couple comments here from Nasty Nizzle 610. Can I see Stanford upsetting Oregon? No. And we'll get to that in a parlay. I actually have the Oregon money line thrown in as a parlay booster. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Michigan also has Daxton Hill, one of the best defensive backs in the country. They are weak at D-back other than him, but he is fantastic, and Marky Mack does point that out. The rest of Michigan's D-backs are trash. I'm not going to defend Michigan. I am betting against Wisconsin far more than I'm betting on Michigan. I know guys like Brandon Walker. I know a lot of college football experts out there absolutely love Wisconsin, and they're doing the line is telling you something. But if you did the line is telling you something on Wisconsin's whole season this year, then you'd be in some trouble because they lost to Penn State as a favorite, and then they got creamed by Notre Dame on a neutral field as a favorite. So I just think Vegas has an incorrect power ranking on Wisconsin. I think people are overrating Wisconsin, and I did it before the year. I bet them over 8.5 wins. This is a bad Wisconsin team. They're not winning 9 games, and they're not winning today. So I think Michigan wins as the underdog. But let's get to my best bet. I've got Kansas State plus 11 versus Oklahoma for 4 units, and I've got Kansas State on the money line versus Oklahoma for 2 units. This is my favorite bet on the board for the college football slate, and it's in honor of the bets I've made the last 2 years. I've been all over this because the last 2 years K-State has beaten Oklahoma as a 28 and a 23.5 point dog. I was all over it both years spread-wise, and I'm all over it again this year, spread and money line. Chris Kleiman owns Lincoln Riley. Spencer Rattler has been downright bad. Oklahoma has won 1-score games against bad teams the last 2 weeks while scoring 16 and 23 points. So you're going to give me 11 points against a team who just scored 16 and 23 on worse defenses than what they're going to face today. I'll gladly take it. K-State was able to hold Carson Strong and Nevada to 17, and they held Stanford to 7. This is a good, legitimate defense. Now, the worry with Kansas State is on the other side of the ball. We don't know who is starting at quarterback yet for Kansas State. Is it Skylar Thompson coming back from injury for his first start of the year, or is it incumbent quarterback Will Howard, who has ankle issues, has some efficiency issues, but really brings something in the run game as a quarterback? Or will it be the third string inexperienced QB Jaron Lewis, who we don't know much about yet? No matter what, I like Kansas State to keep it within 11, but I sure hope one of Kansas State's top 2 QBs play. K-State is 3-1 against the spread off of a loss, and I'll back them here due to loyalty from the past 2 years and owning Oklahoma in this rivalry as of late. So let's get to my last straight play on the board at 6 o'clock. I've got over 54.5, Florida, Kentucky, 4-2 units. This has moved up to around 56. I still like it. I would try to get it under that 56 hook, but I think this will be a very, very close game. And as you know, I always say close games breed overs. Emory Jones and AR-15 for Florida have been great options at QB, and they can both run up the score on offense. But Kentucky has a stud QB and transfer Will Levis from Penn State. Kentucky's first 3 games of the season went comfortably over their total, and Florida averages 36 points while Kentucky averages 31 points. Both of these teams can run the ever-loving shit out of the ball. Florida is first in the nation in rushing yards, while Kentucky is second in the nation in passing yards. So something's got to give there. Junior Robinson, Chris Rodriguez Jr., has been an absolute beast leading Kentucky's rushing attack this season, having gone over 100 yards in the last 3 games that Kentucky has played. And he's only been held under 5 yards per carry twice in his 14 career games. According to PFF, Kentucky also has the 13th. They're also ranked 13th in passing success. So this is a team that just can move the ball no matter how you slice it. They've had some concerns on defense that I do think Florida will be able to exploit. So I'll go over 54.5 Florida, Kentucky for 2 units at 6 o'clock. And then getting to my 2 parlays at the end. I tweeted the one out last night. It involved Iowa, but that has Purdue money line, Oregon money line, and Army money line following up Iowa after that win last night. And that's at plus 550 for 1 unit. And then I also have a 3:30, 5 o'clock Sunday parlay with Oregon money line, Army money line, Titans money line. At plus 130 for 1 unit. Oregon's not losing to Stanford. Stanford doesn't have the athletes to compete with Oregon. And I think Stanford had their big moment this year. I don't think they're going to be able to get up as a big underdog to win a, massive upset spot twice in one season with the talent that they have on that roster. So I think they got up big a couple weeks ago against USC, a team that they have historic success against. So I think Oregon handles them pretty easily here. And then I think Army handles business as well. And I think Army takes care of business against Ball State, a team that they're much better than. Army's 4-0. You might want to start looking at that schedule. They play Wisconsin and Wake Forest coming up. If I was Wisconsin and Wake Forest, you cannot take Army lightly. That's a team that has really impressed so far this year on both sides of the ball. This is a really good Army team that is going to absolutely smoke Navy in the Army-Navy game later on this year, because Navy's bad, Army's good. So let's recap those picks and let's get you guys out of here. At 12 o'clock, I like Purdue minus 2.5 for 2 units. At 12 o'clock, I also like Michigan money line for 4 units over Wisconsin. At 3:30, I like Syracuse plus 4.5 at Florida State and Syracuse money line at Florida State for 1 unit. At 3:30, I also like Nevada plus 7 and on the money line at Boise State for 2 units each. In my best bet, my play of the day, my lock of the night, I've got Kansas State plus 11 versus Oklahoma for 4 units at 3:30, and I've got Kansas State on the money line for 2 units at 3:30 against Oklahoma. And my last straight bet, I've got over 54.5 in Florida, Kentucky for 2 units at 6 o'clock. So please, everyone, go give me a follow at Mark Henry Jr. _ and follow the podcast at Tough Cover Pod. Please follow the Painted Lines at The Painted Lines and give them a subscription on YouTube or wherever you're watching this right now. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the Tough Cover Click, and enjoy the winners.